the screws. One here, any others? That could be all. No, that's not all, because that does not want to lift off. Now there's one. That screws either side of the tripod socket. And that's stuck to the tripod socket with glue and the remains of that leather. Here we go. So I can see that the gears here on the Film Advance are very sticky with dirty grease. This is the return spring for the shutter release. I must make a point of taking note of that, because otherwise I won't know where it goes back. These two screws presumably hold the struts in. That was the rewind button from the bottom. Let's try the two screws from the top, see if they have any interest in coming loose. One's a bit mutilated, which means that it was put in very, very... Oh, that's coming loose. That's coming loose. On the top, on the base of the camera, what will happen? That's coming loose. That's coming loose. Let's take them out. What was that? Oh, that was the front catch releasing there. Those two screws are loose. They're quite short, those screws. This one formed the pivot for the front catch. It's a lengthened screw. Its mate was quite short and larger diameter. So that's something to be aware of. And the two screws at this end, yes, one of them forms the pivot for this. Will the struts come out of the body now? We're still stuck in here. There's a further screw back here. That may have something to do with it. Of course, that one doesn't want to move. And yes, that is something to do with it. So that one might need some more brutal treatment. That is extremely reluctant to move. Some solvent, I think, in the first instance. And then I think Probably this. Hold on to your seat. That's it. It's loose. Took that screw out. The struts are out. I've got the struts out of the body. This is part of the shutter release, this arm here. I want that off because the shaft it connects to sliding up and down in the body there is gummy. And I'll need to remove that so I can clean that recess out. This entire camera, basically was a functioning camera, with the exception of every mechanical part being lubricated with grease that had dried out to a nasty paste. The shutter itself worked after a fashion. Oh, that's a long screw, that one. Okay, so that's that arm off. There's the shutter release component off. Good. This component here, there was a spring there and I don't know where it's come from. Very good. Probably this. This gear here cocks the shutter, but I don't know how that's held into the body. Oh, there's a screw here at the top. That probably locks it in. Let's have it out. No, it's trapped in there behind the frame that holds the bellows in place. How stiff is that? Very stiff. Alright, I'm going to lift the bellows out. There's a plate here with 4 small screws on it that surrounds the bellows and holds them into the body. They may well be cemented in as well. Honestly don't know what to expect. See if that will come loose. That's a very thin metal trim. It doesn't want to come loose, which suggests that it's all glued in there. So I might have to investigate freeing up this gummy gear in position, I think. I don't want to have to do anything dramatic with these bellows. bellows on Agfa cameras are not good leather like the ones used on Retinas. They're inclined to give up the ghost. And I can see this camera's grizzling about battery life, so I'm going to stop you right here. Right, back to this job. So, where am I? I'm going to remove a couple of these parts because they're very greasy and sticky. This seems to lift straight out. It's just on a small post. We'll lift that out. Pop that to one side. This gear likewise is loose on the shaft. Let's get that off. Oh, it's a sleeve. Okay, we'll have that out. This one, does that lift out? It just looks like an idler. It should lift out, I think. Let's have a poke and a prod at that and see if that'll lift out. It's probably like its mate next door. It doesn't want to. There may be a screw locking that in position, though I can certainly see nothing. Let's try that a little bit more. Just looks like it's cast, so it may be a bit delicate. No, it doesn't want to lift out. I'll leave that there and clean it in place. And the other thing I need to clean is this shaft here, which is the cocking shaft for the shutter, and that's just very, very gummy. Now there was a screw down from the top which probably locks this and stops it coming adrift. I can't pull this out because the bellows and that metal plate holding the bellows is blocking it. Now I know that the metal plate is glued to the bellows, and likewise the bellows are glued to the chassis, and I do not expect I'd ever be able to get those bellows off in one piece in order to get to that gear to the stage where I can pull it out. So I'm going to try and clean that in place with a bit of solvent. First I'm going to clean up the top deck here because that's covered in very thick dried grease. Now this grease is not green, it's not the Agfa's green grease, it's grey. Probably means that there was some component of graphite in it at some stage, but it's just gone very sticky, which is not at all unusual because grease basically consists of oils and a wax or soap base, and over time the oils, all the volatiles, just go away really, vaporise off, disappear somewhere, and you're left with the waxy base, which is not a marvellous lubricant. It just tends to stick things together like glue. So this is the section that the slide for cocking the shutter runs on there. The slide couples of course to the gear on the end of this shaft. Now the rangefinder coupling is moving freely, there's not a problem there, so I'm not going to try and disassemble that. But I've got to get rid of all the traces of old thick dried grease here. That's where the shutter release drops down in the body there. Well, that went fairly well. I'm just going to dribble a bit of solvent down that hole there and then just rotate that gear and see if that frees anything up. Can't say I'm feeling anything good. I'll put a drop of solvent behind that gear and rotate it. Oh, that's running a lot better. So the grease is sticking that gear to the surface really. Yeah, that's just running nicely and freely now. So basically I've got to flush out all that crap, and most likely I'll put a drop of oil behind there to lubricate that, because I can't remove it in order to grease it, which is what I'd otherwise do. I'll probably put a drop of oil down there, just a single drop of nye oil, because that's what I've got. So just about anything will do. That's good. That's running absolutely freely now. So that grease has softened up. Some of it's washed out, but it's certainly creating no restriction there. Now there's some sort of collar there, brass collar. That might screw in and hold that gear in place. I'm just lifting the spring from the rangefinder coupling away, because that's blocking the movement of that collar. That collar might unscrew. I don't think that's actually going to help me in this case, because of course I can't lift the gear out anyway. No, alright, that was a vain hope. I can't lift the gear out because the bellows are in the way. But it does appear that if the bellows had not been there, that there's a collar there that I could unscrew from the body, which may hold that gear and shaft in place. Of course I couldn't see that previously because it's all sticky with grease. It would be very useful if I'd had a parts list for this camera, because the parts list normally has an exploded diagram so you can see how the parts were arranged, what went where, and what components were actually involved, which I can't. I'm just guessing. That's nice and free now. That's running really well. You might recall that the film advance on this camera was very sticky. It wouldn't return to the rest position at all. As it happens, I have a Karat 36 body here. This is quite a good example by comparison. And you'll see that the film advance just snaps back. This is one from my stray parts boxes, and its problem is that the bellows are shot, and I can get no bellows for it, at least no bellows at a price that would make it a sensible thing to do. Let me clean round inside the body here, see if I can get rid of the dust and dirt and stuff, and dried grease. having that parts camera there is very useful, not because I need parts from it for this job, but because it allows me to see exactly how everything was connected up. If my photos that I carefully took as I disassembled the camera aren't up to the job, perhaps I've missed something, failed to take a picture of something I should have taken note of, failed to see exactly where a spring connected that came flying out when I was least expecting it, that sort of thing. And in cases like that, it's very handy if you've got a parts camera lying around, as long as it's relatively complete. It'll allow you to see things like that. Well, that's moving very smoothly. I'm quite happy with that now. And the top of the body, let's have a look. Is that gear's moving smoothly? So that was a useful exercise. Those parts cleaned up much better than I had hoped. I really did think that they were going to cause me some grief. Now I'm just working on the gear here to try and clear any dried grease out of the teeth of it. It's a casting, I think. It's probably not very robust, and I just want to get any grit and grease out of those teeth. So to do that, I'll just use a wooden toothpick, and I'll just go around the gear wiping that rubbish out. Now, another thing you can do this with is you can use a short, stiff brush to do exactly the same job. Just to get in between those teeth and lift out any impacted grease and dust. And you'll be able to feel if there's a serious problem, like some particle of metal was impacted into the surface, then you'll be able to feel it, and you can come back and deal to that with more serious tools, like a tip of a pair of tweezers or something. That's very good. I'm just wiping around the inside of that bush. Here I can't really get in because the shaft's in the way. I don't know if I can remove that shaft. Let's have a look at the bottom of the camera. Let's close that camera back. The tripod socket is held on with 2 screws, and I may have access to that take-up spool shaft. If I remove these screws, now one of them came off without a fight. The other one's going to come off, yeah, with only a small fight. There's our tripod socket. There's a screw there. Oh, the shaft lifts out. The screw stops the shaft from rotating. So that's our shaft out. Can we tip the take-up spool out? No. Something's preventing me from doing that. Might come out if I turn it the right way. I rotate it and get it to come out. Oh yes, you do. Because of the notches on the top, if I rotated it the right way I could get it to come out, because there's a slot in the bush at the top here. And I can see that this video camera says the battery's going flat, which is disappointing. It was only freshly put in. I'll just change that.